Hey everybody, Hey everybody, my name is AussieBrony, and today I will be reading chapter 10 of The Changeling and the Pony. This story was written by somebody called The Nine Tard. This story is on his story is on fanfiction.net. If you want to check it out or any of his other stories, go on there and I guess search the Changeling and the Pony or something. I don't know. So yeah, I will start the recording now. Around mid-afternoon, Darkhorn had gone over to Fluttershy's cabin. As expected, she was already don't know what that is, the bees in the backyard. As he approached her, though, she wasn't just humming this time. She was actually singing to them. He listened to her with ease, preferring her singing over her humming any day. Hello, little bees, won't you play with me? I don't. I'm just not going to sing it. I'm going to say it because I don't know how the tune is. Hello, honey bees, won't you sing with me? You don't have to hide or worry. I'll be your friend. Hello, honey bees. I'll play and sing with you all day. Hi, he sheepishly interrupted. That was a nice song. She nearly jumped into the sky as he walked to her. Hey, Darkhorn. Sorry, you just startled me. When he came closer, the bees didn't react this time. Instead, they continued to hover and not sting him. He was surprised along with her at this. They seem a lot easier around you today. I wonder why. He shrugged, because honestly he had no idea either. In fact, as the day passed, all the animals were easier around him. The birds let him feed them. The bees never stung or fled for him, and though Angel was still apprehensive about Darkhorn, he seemed a little less hostile with his presence. That was how it went. The Changeling helped out for a few days. He would carry the jars, try and fail. Turns out he's a horrible singer. Just don't know what that word is. To the bees. Spend time with her, help her flavour the honey, and aid her in putting the honey jars together. He learned how to properly seal and decorate them, and this time Fluttershy had them tied with a pink ribbon for her and also a blue ribbon for Darkhorn, since they were making it together. They would also take time to have lunches, though Darkhorn, of course, had to hide the fact he wasn't eating, but occasionally he would stomach a taste of honey. He was even introduced to a new type of flower. It was tiny, pale yellow, and gave off a similar scent to honey, but Fluttershy claimed it was much sweeter. It was called honeysuckle. Aren't humans able to eat honeysuckle? I don't know. The yellow Pegasus claimed it was her favourite type of flower because of its sweet aroma and taste. She taught him how to properly eat one by pulling the stem until you saw the nectar, then eat it whole. Once again, he reached indigestion to try it, and loved it. Darkhorn noted that Fluttershy herself often smelled like honeysuckle flowers, but that was his private and embarrassing opinion. This went on for nearly a week. The Alcorn had been staying with Fluttershy for the time being, and sometimes had the chance to say hello to her visiting friends. He had got to know them. He started to hold less and less resentment towards the other 5 mares. They weren't so bad once you got to know them. Even Pinkie Pie had her quirks. The house had to be cleaned up and the glass replaced. He almost felt like a regular there. The Changeling knew deep inside he wasn't. He'd never be. Still, he was content to live with this blissful fever dream for as long as he could. On Saturday, Darkhorn was helping Fluttershy set up her honey stand in front of Appleacre's farm. They had both worked hard to make and flavour different honey types, and now was the day to have that work paid off. You really stared down at cockatrice? Darkhorn asked, putting a jar on the table. Fluttershy modestly smirked. Well, yes, he was going to hurt the girls, so I had to. The Alicorn laughed, something he never did. Was this before or after you made the dragon cry? It was way after. She began checking the jars to make sure they were sealed all properly. It was terrifying. Are you kidding me? You call me brave, yet I've never been able to look at a cockatrice in the eye or face down a full-grown dragon. That's what I call bravery, Fluttershy. She was shied away from this. Oh, you're just saying that. No, I mean it. He reached over and put a hoof on hers. You really can be brave at times. When I was hurt and bleeding all over the place, you stayed calm to stitch me up, calm enough to stitch me up, and you kept your head level to save mine from the Timberwolf. And now it seems you've risked your own life a few times to save your friends and animals too. I think you're stronger than you believe, Fluttershy. Fluttershy blushed a bit and tried to hide her face with her hair. So, thank you, Darkhorn, for all your help and the compliments. They sat there for a few seconds when he realised his hoof was still on hers. He noticed it at the same time as she did, and they both awkwardly backed away from each other, trying to apologise to each other. When it was shrugged off, he looked to her once again as she set out the last of the honey jars. He had a question that had been eating at him since that night with the Timberwolf, something he was scared of asking because of the party incident, but he had to know from her. For some reason, a piece of his small dark heart cared for her view of him. He carefully picked his words. He would have to approach this delicately. Fluttershy, may I ask you that could be a question that could be personal? She turned her head from the table to him. I don't mind. What is it? The stallion shifted his feet uncomfortably. Remember that changeling that attacked you in the forest? She dipped her head in a solemn nod, which only made him more hesitant to continue. At your party, I heard quite well that your friends seemed to think about him and the others of his kind as one who's never met a changeling before. I haven't heard your opinion either. What do you think about a changeling that attacked you? Her eyes darted around, seamlessly deep in thought. Carefully, she eventually opened her mouth to speak. Applejack came along. Howdy there, Sugarcube. Howdy, Dark. Darkhorn had to keep from grinding his teeth when he turned to Applejack. Hello, nice to see you again. She gave him a tip of the hat and breathed in the aroma of honey jars. Woo-wee, I say, Fluttershy, this may be your best batch yet. What an intoxicating scent. That intoxicating scent's enough to rival our Zap Apple Jam. Yellow Pegasus grinned slyly. Thanks, Applejack. Right, I can't take all the credit. I owe a lot to the several beehives at home who were so gracious to share their honey with everyone. And of course, Darkhorn deserves a lot of credit. After all, he was such a hard worker and really helped me perfect this year. And in this year, I can't thank him enough. He gave a sheepish smile to Applejack, and the freckled mare just smiled back. I'd love to be your first customer of the day, Sugar Cube. What flavours do you have this time? Fluttershy with a bit of pride, waved her arm over the assortment of various honeys. Well, we have the original honey flavour. Here's some apple flavoured honey, your favourite. and some honey with a slight hint of mint added to it. Here's honey with a twist of berries. Then she gestured to a small arrangement of jars that had a pink lace instead of white. And this is a new flavour I've tried thanks to suggestions by Fluttershy. Honeysuckle honey. We mix just a few good drops of honeysuckle nectar into the honey, and it really makes quite the sweet taste. It's my personal favourite. Applejack seemed excited at the jars. Wow, you two have certainly worked hard. Well, what are you waiting for? I'll have a dozen jars, please. 6 of the apple and 6 of the honeysuckle. He tossed. I think that's supposed to be a she. She tossed some coins onto the table. Fluttershy was only charging 5 apiece. No problem. No problem. She started to lay it out in a padded box for Applejack when her other friends started arriving. The other 4 mares each brought different and several types of honey from them. Rarity preferred the mint honey. Twilight stuck most with the original. Rainbowdash became prone to the honeysuckle and got her usual berry honey. Pinkie Pie got all the honey she could buy, including several jars of honeysuckle. It rapidly became her new favourite type, and she exclaimed, "This is your best one." After they had gotten theirs, it wasn't long before the other ponies in town had made a long line at the honey stand. Twilight and the others stuck around to help Fluttershy sell the large load, like they usually did. They didn't have extra help this time from Darkhorn, but they did have extra help this time from Darkhorn, who handed them the boxes of honey after honey. It was a long day, but eventually every pony had arrived and was satisfied and left. It was getting late when Fluttershy closed the stand and began packing up. She still had some boxes of honey left, and she would put it to good use. The timid filly had made a good amount of money that day and would use it to get food for her and her animals. Any remainder would be invested in repairing the rest of the damage to her cabin and a more protective fence around the backyard. It was the evening when the stand was packed away and to be moved. The group easily helped Fluttershy carry the materials and remaining boxes back to her cabin and put it away. When everything was done, the sky had turned a deep purple with the grey rain clouds, and her friends had said goodbye to get home before the rain came again, leaving just her and Darkhorn inside the cabin. She let out a long relieved breath, tired. The mare looked to Darkhorn, who had neatly stacked up the last of the boxes. "Thank you again, Darkhorn." She reached into the small box she had collected the day's earning in. "Please let me at least pay you half of the proceeds." "That won't be necessary," he insisted. He didn't do this for money. He just wanted to spend time with her. To him, that turned out to be more payment than he could have predicted. Besides, what use did a changeling have for money? Fluttershy was going to insist he take some, but the serenity he had, she realized he truly didn't want any money. So she put the little money box in her safe upstairs and sealed it shut. She would invest it tomorrow. She came downstairs and saw him waiting there, looking like he was confused of what to do now. Angel was watching them from a table, nibbling on a fresh carrot. Fluttershy hadn't forgotten what the acorn had asked her earlier. In fact, she was thinking about it the whole day, and it was bothering her to no end. Slowly, she walked into the kitchen and pulled out some bread and an extra jar of honey she had on the counter. Wrapping it in a clean cloth, she put the food items into one of her several baskets and brought the basket into the living room where Darkhorn was. She placed it on the floor next to her and as expected, Stain was looking at her in confusion. With great reluctance, she said, "Darkhorn, earlier you asked me what I thought of the changeling. You know, the one that attacked me? His blue eyes widened and he bowed his head, almost regretting asking her about it at all. Yes? Well, can you keep a secret? He was becoming uneasy, judging by her worried expression and the hushed tone in her gentle voice. This was serious. What is it? She bit her lip and looked to the basket next to her, wondering if she should still go through with this. I. The truth is, the changeling I encountered, I don't hate him. She said the last few words bluntly. It almost didn't register with him. What? Why? Fluttershy started to whine. I don't hate him. I know it's stupid, but I really don't. The truth is, ever since I left him there, I've been guilt-ridden. I kept thinking how hungry and lonely he was and how badly I had busted his face. uh, Surely the poor thing must be starving all alone out there. I know it was the right thing to do. Any pony would have just done the same. But I kept feeling like it was possible for me to help him. She huffed in shame, confused by her conflicting thoughts. And now here I am. I have no idea what happened to that monster, and I'm still mad at the changelings. But but this one, all alone, I can't help but feel sorry for him. Near tears, Fluttershy looked up at him with sad eyes. Darkhorn, I must try to help him. I just have to find him and make sure he's okay. Else I'll never be able to forgive myself. Can you please accompany me into the Everfree Forest and look for the changeling? I want to give him some of the honey we made, just to show I don't hate him. I just had no choice when I fought back. Please, can you go with me before it gets dark? Every day that passes, I just get more worried. She continued to look up at him with those big cyan irises, a desperate plea within them. He was more bewildered and amazed by her now more than ever. He had attacked her, hurt her, given her gashes on her arm that she was still healing from, wounded her beloved angel, and still she was the one that felt sorry for such a monster, an ugly, heartless monster that stole love like he. She, this unique and kind Pegasus, he realized, was just too good for him. He had thought all along her kind, cute antics were disgusting and weak, but only after the time he had with her he opened did he open his eyes to the true purity she held. She was gentle and sweet, a delicate flower, much like a honeysuckle, if you will. How could he be so cruel? And how could he have been so cruel? How could she have been so kind? Why, oh why was it just now that he realized how evil it was for changelings to feed off love, the love of others, love, a positive emotion that could never understand, that they could never understand or have. They could only mimic and harvest it like greedy locusts chewing at the last stalk of green within a field. That was all he was. He sadly concluded. A locust, a scavenger. He didn't deserve her kindness. Feeling his heart sink in depression, he choked out, I think he's okay. Can't you ask one of your closer friends to help you with this? Fluttershy shook her head. No, they've all gone home already. And you've heard what they said at the party. They all hate changelings, and would never accept me for wanting to seek out the one that attacked me. My friends are lovely and understanding, but even this is pushing it. I can barely believe I want to go help too, because I'm not very fond of those scary changelings either. After the incident at Canterlot, but I just can't bring myself to hate a wounded creature. Please, it's too personal for the others, especially Twilight, and I don't want to go into the woods all by myself. For all I know, the changeling could still be dangerous. Please come with me. You're the only one I can trust on this matter. Despite his great reluctance, Darkhorn buckled under Fluttershy's heartbroken gaze. He had to go with her into the forest. If you're sure, I'll go with you. Her eyes were still sad, but they didn't glitter a bit with but they did glitter a bit with hope at his answer, and she leaned against him. Thank you. You know, even though we just met about a week ago, you're a pretty good friend, she relished, and the momentary hum that came from his chest and picked up her basket with her teeth. The two left her cabin to get. Oh, one sec, guys. Okay, I'm back, everybody. Where am I? Uh, um, the two. Wait, what? Oh, here we go. The two left the cabin together, Angel looking on. He was worried for a moment about her going by herself with him into the woods, but for some unknown reason he oddly felt she would be safe with the Changeling. Something had changed in the monster, and Angel couldn't exactly point out what. They had searched the area she encountered the Changeling for about an hour. Darkhorn hadn't. Darkhorn knew they weren't very close. They were very close to his armor that was hidden in the tree. He was scared about what would happen if she found it, but part of him was also curious. How would she react? What would she say if she found it? Well, his answer was about to come to him, because when Fluttershy pegged into another hollow tree base, she let out a loud gasp. Darkhorn, I found something. She bit the armor and pulled it, laying his dark purple guard armor next to her food basket that was left. Wait, what? I just lost my spot. No. Oh, that he had left all. That he had all but left behind. It was drenched and stained thanks to the days of neglect and rain. He poured at it when she poured at it with her right hoof, with a solemn expression. This was his armor. I recognize it. He was the only changeling I've ever seen with armor, yet he's not here, and this hasn't been tended to for days. She pushed it with her yellow hoof and stared at Darkhorn with devastating concern. Why would he leave it behind? What if he really is hurt? What if he got a cold from the rain, or was dragged off by one of the many wild creatures that lived here? What could have possibly happened to the poor thing? Her voice became frantic, and her wide eyes became filled with tears. If he wasn't able to defend himself because of a broken jaw, I caused him, and I got him, and got himself killed. I don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do. Overcome with guilt and worry, the element of kindness couldn't handle it and began to sob in front of Darkhorn. The sight was horrible. The sight was horrible to him. It was sad enough to see her cry because of the Timberwolf. That was out of understandable fear, but not over him. He wasn't worth shedding tears over. Him, the locust, the ugly duckling. That was it. This was too much. He had loved the time he spent in that tacky, bright-coloured pony town. He had come to enjoy all her friends, but most of all, he had never felt happier around anyone other than Fluttershy. He couldn't stand to see her miserable because of him alone, even though it would mean the end of their friendship and his life in Ponyville. This was the end of the line. He had to tell the truth. With his heart weighing like lead, the Archon reached out and said with words he regretted most. Fluttershy, the Changeling's fine. He's not hurt, but in good health. Fluttershy stopped crying and moved her head to stare at the taller pony, her cheeks wet from the tears. What? How do you know that? Without saying anything, he moved from her and pulled the armor plate to his body. He placed it on his head and chest, and fastened it like he knew how. It was a perfect fit. Shard became more confused and was slowly putting two and two together. He didn't give her a chance. Slowly his horn turned green, and his disguise began to peel away, starting at his head and down to his hooves. His blue mane and tail disappeared, replaced with spines along his back and short-ribbed ones. His fur was replaced with a bug shell. The patterns on his back formed into a shell also. His feathery wings turned into ripped, transparent bug wings that flexed under the forest caverns. His stitchings were still on his left shoulder, but they would heal soon anyway, and his legs became full of holes that made it look rotten. His pony ears became ripped, fangs peeking out from his lips and grew a little below his chin. His ice blue eyes became pupilless and glowed, but they were the same colour. At last he had finally revealed his true form before Fluttershy, for the first time since he had attacked her. His expression was full of bottomless sorrow as he waited for her screaming or her hate-filled lecture. Her hate would weaken him to the point he would possibly pass out in the woods. He didn't care anymore. If he was left alone to die, it was over. He, however, lowered his ears, waiting for the pain. As he expected, Fluttershy stared at him with utter shock and horror. Darkhorn, the Alcorn she had spent the past week and a half with, the first stallion she had ever been comfortable enough to have a crush on, was really a changeling all along. Not just any changeling, but the one that had so viciously tried to drain her and hurt Angel. Her gaze went to horror, to anger, to disappointment, then blank confusion. After what seemed like hours to both of them, Fluttershy began to shake. Whether it was anger or sadness, he didn't know. Upset, Darkhorn meekly scuffed the grass with his ruined hooves. "This is me, Fluttershy. This is what I am." She spoke finally, her voice shaky. "Why?" she asked. "Why lie to me? How could you do that?" She lifted her head so he could see her pained expression. To his surprise, it wasn't angry or hateful. It was sadness, pure betrayal. "How could you actually trick me into thinking you were my friend? That you actually cared when you were just trying to drain me the whole time? How could you do that? Stop," he demanded, not letting her become any sadder. "Before you continue, let me explain. Please, just a wish." Normally any pony would have refused and kept going, but Fluttershy was different. She wanted to know the reason for his deception, if it wasn't to hurt her. It was the least she could do for all his help. Calmly but still shaking, she sat down in front of him. He thought for a moment and continued. "You're right, I was originally there to seek vengeance by draining you and your friends. I was so made and full of my own hate. It was all I had wanted. I was going to get the energy I needed to find my queen and take over Ponyville, since you six would be out of the way. It was the perfect plan. Then I could have more than I could, it was and more than I could have hoped for." He paused, his chest hurting to continue. "But then I got to know you all. Everyone started to grow on me. I became more desperate to belong with you or instead of my own family. You were the best thing that happened to me. At first annoyed by your kindness, but I came to adore it and feed off it. What was strange is though I feed off your positive emotions, it didn't seem to affect your negativity. Apparently, if we changeling share love with our victims instead of force it from it doesn't hurt you. I think it also works if that love it given and concern you held towards me was certainly given freely. I could sense it." She put her hoof on her chest, remembering how much she really did care for him at the time, and how safe she had felt in his arms. Yet she felt and had felt fine. His words were honest so far. The changeling had to pace, his head beginning to throb. The longer time I spent around you and your friends, the more and more I forgot about what I originally came here to do. It had gotten to a point I didn't want to hurt you, and it all started that night of the storm. Fluttershy. He turned to look at her with such more sincerity in his blank eyes could muster. That was a moment of kindness I really needed. It was from you. I'd never felt so happy and free before. The concern given to me from you was much more than enough to keep me alive longer, and it didn't harm either. Changelings really can't eat anything solid. That's why I was so hesitant to try the honey and couldn't finish Pinkie Pie's awful cupcake. We live off emotion, and emotions alone. So sorry, but your bread and honey wouldn't have helped me anyway. He pushed her basket aside, but then began again with despair. As for never telling you, you figure out why I have to keep this secret. You said it yourself that ponies hated changelings. Your friends hate us. Your friends hate us, and would have run me out of town. And you were just recently attacked by one, specifically me. How could I tell you all then what I was, who I really was? You would have never accepted me. You would have hated me. Even now, I look at your pain and fear. I know you will soon hate me too. I lied because I was afraid of not only being run off, but leaving you. And I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, but that was a fear I had worse than never seeing my own family again. And he groaned. I never meant to hurt you, Fluttershy. I did at first, but not anymore. I didn't want it to come to this, but I couldn't let you continue to be miserable just because of me. I had to tell you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for this whole mess. And I know this doesn't change anything, but to me you're the most beautiful pony I've ever met, inside and out. He kept his head down to the ground, not bothering to look up at her. He couldn't bear it. Please, if you want to yell or scream at me, go ahead. I understand completely that you'd want to punish the monster. Just don't be upset over me anymore. I think that guilt alone would kill me more than the negative emotions that would come from you. The monster said, then with pain in his voice, I'm not asking you to forgive me or even like me. All I want is for you to believe me when I say I don't hate you, and I didn't want it to be like this. Believe that at least you don't believe anything else I've said, and believe that at least if you don't believe anything else I've said, I'm so sorry. He sat there pitifully, with his ears drooping and his head hung, waiting for her verbal onslaught. Fluttershy was truly lost at what to think. Here this changeling that originally planned to attack her again had resisted and worked with his feral instincts to keep from joining her, just because he didn't want to hurt her anymore. Why would he work so hard to help her? Why would he care so much? Was it possible? Was it really possible that a changeling could feel something towards another too? Could he have a crush on her as well? This hideous thing, this bug-like pony-esque creature, this monster before her, was crying and begging for her to believe him. She looked upon him with pity, and more a moment silently walking away, but something inside kept her from rooting that spot. Kept her rooted to that spot. Despite all he's done, he's just done so much more to help her. He was kind, gentle, caring, and strong. He had saved her from the wolf, comforted her after the fact, risked stomach problems from the honey, and even gone out of his way to spend time with her and her friends. His eyes had become opened to the world of truth he was never able to experience, just for the cruelty of being born that way. It was just so unfair. He was cursed with this. If something is born a monster and looks like a monster, is it still a monster if it believes otherwise? Monsters could be seen in ponies who were vile and hateful towards others. This changeling was at first, but that wasn't the same one in front of her now. This one she had fallen in love with. The changeling kept waiting for her to yell, cry, do something to him. The weight started to kill him. Just then, he felt something soft as silk being pressed against his chin and neck. Moving his head up slightly, he noticed pink hair covering the pony head that was laying against him. Fluttershy was on her side and was snuggling into his folded up legs in front of him, burrowing her face into his neck and chest in a very gentle way. It hurt her muzzle a little when she pressed it into him. It wasn't like snuggling into a soft pony this time, into soft pony fur this time. It was a bug shell. To be honest, it still kind of felt gross, but she didn't care. Before he could ask what she was doing, she spoke softly. I don't hate you, and I'm not mad. I was just upset that you thought I really wouldn't accept you after everything you've done for me. After all, I can see the good inside your heart, Darkhorn. I forgive you, and I understand why you'd want to hide this secret. But you don't ever have to be afraid of what I think of you. To me, a creature that can truly care and tries hard enough to change its worth and change is worthy living among us. I forgive you. He had to bite back tears from his eyes. She wasn't angry, and further than that, she had accepted and forgiven him. It was almost like a dream. At that moment, he no longer cared. He was in love with the sweet pony. As ridiculous as it was for a changeling to be in love, he couldn't admit it now. For some reason, he didn't feel like it was the right time. Not yet. He would have his chance. Little did he know Fluttershy felt the same way. She giggled a little bit. I just wish you would have told me sooner. I would have stopped trying to give you honey sandwiches. He smiled a bit, but still suppressed tears as he rubbed his chin into her head, taking in her honeysuckle scent. How could he have never noticed how beautiful her I don't know what that word is, mane was against her pale yellow coat? She responded to his affectionate gesture by shyly snuzzling her head into his chest, earning a loud hum from him. She smiled. Let me guess. Is that her from Changelings only? Yeah, that's so cute. She leaned up from him to look in his frightening pale blue eyes, despite them looking so different. Fluttershy was able to see the same Alcorn she had come to trust within them. She looked up without fear. Despite how ugly she was, she could see the beauty within him. But what about the others, she asked. I doubt they'll be accepting of you. I'll remain in hiding a little bit longer until I'm ready to reveal myself. The wounds from the wedding are still too fresh for your friends, but as long as you're there with them, then I'm not so afraid to show my form. He grinned, but decided to hide the majority of his sharp teeth. Thank you for understanding, Fluttershy. He leaned forward and nuzzled her forehead with his nose and mouth. Usually among his siblings, this could be a way of communicating trust since they tended not to talk. Trust was among close siblings, and it was important since they could easily cut or damage each other with their fangs. He did not only use it for trust in this case, but affection. Fluttershy felt a small wave of fear come over her when his fangs brushed her skin, but to be honest, they kind of tickled. What? Her bashfulness soon took over, and she bowed her head from him, a blush gracing her pretty features. He couldn't stop him from thinking her expression was simply adorable. Then the unexpected happened. Even though she was so shy and timid, she wasn't able to prevent leaning up towards him and giving the changeling a quick kiss on his hard cheek. It felt funny, like kissing glass or a bowl instead of fine fur. Even the feeling was disturbing. It was still sweet. She pulled away, shocked by what she just did in the spur of the moment. The changeling only stared back at her with an equal amount of bewilderment. Fluttershy became flustered. Sorry, I don't know what came over me. He didn't answer, but the horn on his head glowed and absorbed the genuine affection she had towards him in a flash. She blinked, waiting to feel weaker, but nothing happened. The changeling was still quiet though, and she began to turn redder. Well, say something. He wanted to say something. He was trying to talk, but no words came out. What was that she just done? He'd seen ponies do it before. Was that a kiss? Changelings had never kissed anything, and it wasn't just because they weren't supposed to feel love. Their fangs got in the way again, and it would have been incredibly awkward for them to attempt it. He'd possibly risk paralyzing her if he tried it. Nevertheless, the feeling was erotic. I don't know what that is. He was about to form some words when the rain started to finally drizzle and pour as the sun was starting to set. Fluttershy looked to the sky and giggled at the rain tapping her face. We should get out of the rain before we're both soaked. Come on. She jumped up and began to happily run back to the cabin, scooping up the basket in the process and gleefully laughing the whole way. He sat there for a little longer in the rain and slowly touched his cheek where she had kissed him. Happiness surged through his whole being as he leapt up with joy and followed after her, nearly forgetting to change back into Darkhorn before we got out of the forest. Happiness surged through his whole being. Oh, I've just read that. The time would come that he would confess how he had fallen in love with her. But he still needed the right moment. The kiss was good enough for now. He didn't know of the events that would soon follow, but he felt worse. But he felt the worst was over, and all they had to worry about now was how to break it to the others that he was a changeling. Oh, how wrong he was. Oh God, how wrong he was. Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed that. Like, comment, and subscribe if you did. I've almost, well, notices from outside, I don't know if you could hear that. I've almost finished this story, so I'm gonna have to get ready for another story. I'm not gonna have to see if I can think of another one to do. I might actually do Past Sins. If you've read it before, then you can tell why I want to read it. Oh yeah. If you haven't, then you can go read it yourself, or wait until until I read it. In my opinion, it's the best fanfic I've ever read, which isn't actually very many, but yeah, know where I'm getting. So anyway, like, comment, and subscribe for more. See you later, everybody.